On Sunday, July 14th, this past year, we set on a journey of disciples making disciples. And we did this because throughout the years, the church has said, hey, you need to be a disciple, but no one really told us how we become a disciple. How exactly is that done? And it was scary. It was scary and uncertain because we had never done ministry like this before. The ministry the way Jesus did it, the way Jesus made disciples, by leaning into them, spending time with them, pouring his heart into them, giving his life to them. Life on life, heart on heart, day in and day out. And as Jesus poured himself into them, they became more and more like Jesus. And as we began the journey of making disciples the way that Jesus made disciples, we discover this. Say this with me. A disciple is someone who is following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, is and on mission with Jesus. Following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and is on mission with Jesus. Following Jesus is what a person does when they commit their lives. They make that initial decision to move from death to life, to move from following whoever or whatever they were following to following Jesus. It's a radical move in every aspect of who they are. But then as the person follows Jesus and as they place them under the guidance and leadership of Jesus, he begins to change them. And they become more like Jesus. Then after a period of time, after they have decided to follow Jesus and been changed by Jesus, then they discover in their lives the mission they have with Jesus, what they have been created to do, the person they have been called to be. And of the three of these, following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and being on mission with Jesus, the one that caught our eye was the second one, being changed by Jesus. Because we came to the realization that we cannot change ourselves. We can't do it. Our brokenness, our sin, our humanity is too much a part of who we are. We can't separate ourselves from it. No matter how hard we try, no matter what positive thoughts we think, we just can't do it. And I came to this conclusion because I saw in myself that I could not change myself. And Paul in the New Testament, one of Jesus' disciples, realized that he could not change himself. And then we began and illustrated this with the cup, as it sort of represents us, our lives, the sin in us, the brokenness in us, the anger in us, the animosity in us, the anxiety in us, the humanity in us. And that we can't make ourselves different than this. And they realize all that we could do is place ourselves under the grace and the mercy and the love of Jesus. And as we make the decision to place ourselves under him, he begins to pour his life into our life. And it doesn't happen overnight. Doesn't happen in 1 week or even 1 year. It happens over a lifetime. And moment by moment, day by day, week by week, year by year, as we take that time to place ourselves under Jesus and make ourselves available to him, little by little, the sin in us is cleaned out. The brokenness in us is removed. The person that we were ceases to be, and we become something more. I'm still Scott Boyd, and you still are who you are. But over years, we become different. We become amazing people like Jesus as we follow the ways of Jesus, the Sabbath, prayer, the word giving, solitude, serving others, community, witnessing. It's all a work of Jesus. And Jesus is changing us. I hear how he's changing the people at Eden. He's changing us, and he's changing the people around us. And Jesus wants us to know that because he is changing us, we are not finished yet. We're not. You know, there are some churches that are drying up and closing the doors, but man, Jesus wants us, I want us to hear that we are just beginning. We're just starting. And this morning we're going to look at the life of an elderly Jewish man named Caleb, well up in years, who was not finished yet, who was just beginning his life. The year's around 1400 BC. And the people of Israel had been led out of Egypt and slavery in Egypt by a leader named Moses, and he had taken them across the desert to the edge of the promised land. And then before Moses took them in, Moses died and passed from the earth. But then Joshua, his second in command, began to lead the people of Israel into the promised land, and the promised land became their land. And the dust was settled, and it became time to divide up the portions of land among the 12 tribes of Israel. And so as the land was being divided up, Joshua's second in command, Caleb, comes to Joshua. And we find in Caleb's life that he was just beginning because of the convictions born in his past. Joshua 14, verse 5. So the Israelites divided the land just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now the men of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God at Kadesh Barnea, about you and me? I was 40 years old. 40 years old, years ago, when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my brothers who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt with fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance, and that of your children forever, because why? You have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly." I want you to hear those words, according to his convictions. A conviction has been totally certain, completely bought into, sold out to a certain belief. And a lot of people, they have the appearance of conviction, convinced of belief. They say things they should say as if they believe. They hang with the people that they should hang with as if they believed. They even try to do things they should do as if they believed, but they only have the appearance of a conviction. But when you are passionately convinced of a belief, the convictions you have begin to have you. And the thoughts you think out of your convictions. Your desires reflect your convictions. Your decisions follow your convictions. You do the things you have never done before and try things you have never tried before and brave things others are scared to even attempt because of your deep convictions. And 45 years earlier, Caleb brought the people of Israel a report back according to his convictions. And it was that since God had promised them this land, that all they had to do was go in and take it. And so Caleb said, I'm just beginning. I'm not tired even though you're tired. I'm not discouraged even though you all might discourage. I'm not going to quit even though you all might be ready to quit. No, not even thinking about it. 45 years ago, the other Israelites decided to quit rather than risk the challenge to live. But Caleb, he was willing to risk his life. and in order to experience the life that God had just for him. I am convinced, I am convicted that you and I are here to bring the love of Jesus to this world. You know, when Jesus came, it was not just to show us how to live a different life. It was to show us that a different life was indeed possible. And the New Testament writers, as they were writing, they believed that when Jesus came, the power of God broke into the world. And it was a power that the world had never seen before. A power of changed men and women. A power of changed hearts. A power of changed lives. And I believe that I absolutely am convicted and convinced that there's no better life than the life of a Christian. And because of that, I'm not finished yet. I'm just beginning. And you are too. Say this with me. I'm not finished yet. I'm just beginning. Say it again. I'm not finished yet. I'm just beginning. That is us. That is you. That was Caleb. And Caleb was just beginning because of the convictions of his past, which gave him the power he needed to live in his present. And then it continues, now then, just as the Lord promised, Caleb says he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said to Moses while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today. All right, hear this. I want everybody to hear this. 85 years old. 85-year-old. Standing there, feisty, crazy, convicted. And I'm still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. And I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Man, I hope when I'm 85, I can say this. What do you think, Dan? What do you think? You feeling it? Not today. Not today, huh? Man, if I could say those was 85, it would be the best day ever. He says, so give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites were there, and their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helped me. I will drive them out just as he said. Then Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. Joshua blessed Caleb by giving him mountains filled with giants. How crazy is that? Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, with more battles to fight and more opportunities to seize. Erwin McManus, pastor of Mosaic Church in California, says an opportunity is in some ways like a long glass tube. It's wide at one end. In the middle, it gets really small. And at the other end, it opens up wide again. It says as an opportunity presents itself, there's a large opening. Things are easy then. And so you step into the opportunity. But as you move down the tube of the opportunity, it gets small, it gets hard. And it takes blood, it takes sweat, it takes tears. And a lot of people tap out right here. They tap out in the middle of the tube. And once you say, I'm out of this, you're under it. And they walk away. But those who make it through the middle, the challenge of the opportunity, the other end opens up, and they are able to step into the opportunity and realize what had been calling them to that point in their lives, and is there that they see the blessings that God has given them. That's the way it was with Jesus. That's exactly the way it was with Jesus. When he began his ministry, man, the people were following him. Life was good. He was drawing people to God, and they were listening. And it says that Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. The opportunity for Jesus to make a difference was wide open. But then came the excruciating middle of the Garden of Gethsemane. And Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. And on reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." And he withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Man, he was right there. It was right there. The tube was small. The middle was hard. An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. And it ended with the cross. I am so glad that Jesus did not give up in the middle of the process. I am so thankful that Jesus didn't tap out and say, "God, this is enough. I'm done. I'm walking away." Jesus had to go through the crucifixion of the middle for us to experience the power and the might and the love of the resurrection at the other end. In Temple Baptist Church, I want you all to know that we are just beginning. We're just beginning because Eden needs to know the life of Jesus. We are just beginning because the ROTC needs to know the hope of Jesus. We are just beginning because a Champaign Chinese Christian church needs to know the future of Jesus. We are just beginning because my morning out, the teachers and the children there need to know the love of Jesus. We are just beginning because more than a reboot, God wants to give us a rebirth. Man, he doesn't want to resuscitate us. He wants to resurrect us. And this I know. This I know. We are just beginning because through us, God is just beginning. Say this with me. We are just beginning because through us, God is just beginning. Caleb was just beginning because the convictions of his past gave him power in his present to leave a legacy in his future. In the last verse. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel. How? Wholeheartedly. His whole heart. His entire heart. His whole life. Every thought. Every breath. Following the Lord, the God of Israel. Hebron belonged to Caleb and his children and his children's children and to his children's children ever since, all because of his convictions to follow the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. What a legacy. What a legacy that was said of Caleb. He followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Caleb would not have been the youngest. He probably wasn't the strongest, not at 85. But he had the greatest conviction. Now I want us to just face up. We're not the biggest church. We're not the fanciest church. And all you need to do is look around and tell that we're not the prettiest church. But a few years down the road, our children and our children's children, as they talk about Temple Baptist Church, if they can say that we followed the Lord, our God wholeheartedly, and made disciples who follow Jesus, and were changed by Jesus, and were on mission with Jesus, then, just like Caleb, we will have fulfilled and sealed our legacy for all eternity. Jesus came to bring life into the world, but doing so, it would cost him his. He showed us that there's no salvation without sacrifice, no resurrection without a crucifixion, no life without death. So out of his conviction, Jesus died so that we can live. The night that Jesus was betrayed, he gathered his disciples around him at a table to observe a meal, to show them the depth of his conviction.